My name is Megan. I currently live in Victoria, British Columbia. I enjoy jewelry making, painting, spending time by the water, kayaking. I manage a restaurant in downtown Victoria. I'm currently studying French and hope to return to school in the near future to study business, and I have Gaucher disease.
Hi, my name is Katie White. I live in Victoria, BC. I'm a server at a local restaurant downtown Victoria. I enjoy writing, reading, going to the beach with my friends, biking, cooking, and I'm planning on returning back to school this fall in my hometown of Ottawa for English with a minor in business. I also have Gaucher disease.
My name is Christine White. I live in Ottawa, Ontario. I'm the mother of three young adults, two of whom have Gaucher disease. For employment, I work for a large travel company in Ottawa, and in my free time, I'm the president of the National Gaucher Foundation of Canada. I became involved back in the early 1990s when the organization, I was one of the founding members. I do a lot of volunteer work for the organization, as well as spend a lot of my free time singing in local community choir. And I'm quite active in my community in other aspects, and I lead a pretty busy life. I remember the first time I ever heard the word Gaucher. It was in the Christmas of 1991. I had a family of three small children. I had a 5-year-old. My daughter Meghan was a year and a half, and my daughter Kate was about 6 months old. Meghan had experienced some nausea, fatigue, tummy aches prior to Christmas, but on Christmas Day she was quite ill. Really high fever, throwing up, and severe pains in her stomach. So we saw our family doctor. We were quite concerned, and on examination he discovered that she had a large spleen and her platelet counts were off. So he had sent us down to Toronto, where we spent a week on the oncology floor getting diagnosed. They were looking for cancer, and that was horrible at the time because Meghan had to go for a bone marrow biopsy, and my husband went in with her, and I remember standing outside of the door. I just couldn't go in. I was just devastated, and we could hear the screams of this little girl as they did this test. So that was horrible. The next day or a few days after we got the diagnosis, we were still there when we came, and the nurse came in, sailed into the room with Meghan and said, "This is Meghan, and she doesn't have cancer," and we were thrilled. But then they said, well, she does have this rare genetic disease. It's a hereditary disease, and this is Gaucher. And we had never heard of that word. Didn't know anyone, didn't know anything about it. But we learned then that the possibility that our other children would have this disease. So our whole family was tested, and it was revealed that our son Andrew was a carrier, and our baby Katie had Gaucher disease. So at that point, we began to live our worst nightmare. We were terrified and alone. We'd never heard of this disease, and what information we did know was really devastating. We went from 2 weeks before having this healthy, happy, little busy family to thinking that maybe our kids are going to die, and that if not die, then maybe live a really challenging, painful life.
I think growing up with Gaucher disease, I had a very different experience from my sister. I think we were kind of on opposite trains the entire time. When we were young, my sister was very secretive about the disease. It wasn't something that she was really comfortable with because she wanted to be just like everyone else. But I was more into the side of, I'm special, this is amazing, everyone should know. And I loved that about myself. I loved that I had something different. I liked that I was unique, and I understood that being different wasn't necessarily bad. It was actually kind of cool to me.
There are pros and cons to knowing my sister has the same disease that I do. Number one, Katie is my best friend in the entire world, so knowing that she suffers from something like this is hard for me to even think of. I would prefer that I would be the only one in the family who had this condition. Unfortunately, we're both affected by it, so you just have to make the best of it. So on that note, knowing that we're both going through the exact same thing at the same time, I think has only brought us closer. If I had to pick one of the many situations where my sister supports me in many respects in life, but in particular with my Gaucher disease, I definitely would have to choose her support when it comes to the physical problems and how my disease is physically manifesting itself as I get older. I was lucky enough and fortunate enough in my growing years that I didn't really experience a lot of the problems that a lot of Gaucher patients are afflicted by, including my sister. I watched her grow up with a lot of bone pain and fatigue. It was something that I was lucky enough to not experience. Unfortunately, now, those things have become a part of my daily life, and honestly, no one really gets it more than my sister does. That's it. When we're walking, when we're biking, when we're sitting around, when I'm experiencing this pain that is unique to a Gaucher patient, Katie's the only one who can talk to me about it. She's the only one who can truly empathize with what it feels like to have this unique problem, to have this unique type of pain.
Having your built-in best friend, not only that sister bond, but that bond of having someone who actually understands what you're going through, be with you at all times, is amazing, because all the appointments we're going to when we're young, they're scary. Like going to blood tests, going to MRIs. I can just remember some of the experiences that we had when we were little, like going to blood tests and me getting so scared and running underneath the head under the table, and the only person who can talk me out is Meghan, because she did it first and it just became easier for me. Every day I had that reminder, all the scary things that were happening to me, they weren't just happening to me, and they weren't that scary because my big sister was with me through all of it.
I think in the last 20 years, huge strides have been made in the support for Gaucher patients. When my girls were diagnosed, we didn't have access to the internet in our home. We had very little information in publications. 5 other families that we knew of from forming the foundation that had this disease. And today, we have patients who can plug in their computer, type in the National Gaucher website, and they have instant access to the latest disease information. They have contact information. They can call us. We can speak on the phone. We can talk, arrange meetings. We can offer them advice or support, or just listen, just be there for them. So shortly after my children were diagnosed, I was given the name of another patient named Mark Friedman. He had asked our physician that if any newly diagnosed families came up, that he would like to be put in touch with them. So I was given the number, and I called Mark and had a very lengthy phone call with him, and it was so great to reach out and finally meet another patient, and I had so many questions for him. Mark Friedman informed us that he'd been in touch with several other patients and that he was trying to get a meeting together so that we could discuss forming a group to support Gaucher patients. From that meeting with Mark, we were able to meet other Gaucher patients, and from that grew the National Gaucher Foundation of Canada. We would have fundraisers and stuff to bring the community together, and we were able to have patients attend annual meetings, which was a great resource because people are isolated with this disease. So that was another really big achievement for us, to be able to bring patients from across the country together in one room, and from that small group of 5 people, many people kind of grew out of that. About 6 or 7 years ago, Mark's life was very, very busy, and with other things happening in his life, so he asked if I would be interested in taking over the role that he had played over the years, and so I was very fortunate enough to have him mentor me for a couple of years. as a president, and every decision I made, I ran by Mark, and he really taught me a lot. And unfortunately, a couple of years into my mentorship with him, Mark's health took a turn for the worse, and he died 3 years ago at the age of 55. My current role is president of the NGF. We have a 6-member board representation from across Canada. Our mission is to provide support for patients through communication, through advocacy, through research, and through awareness. We like to reach out to people. This is such a rare disease that it can be extremely isolating. I've personally experienced that when my children were newly diagnosed. So to be there for other patients and to be able to support them through our work is really, really important to us. And that's one of our primary goals, is we don't ever want people to feel like they're alone. Gaucher is such a rare disease. I feel that it's really, really important that patients have the chance to connect with one another. You can feel really isolated and alone. And by meeting someone and knowing that they know what you're going through, it gives you the strength and it gives you hope for the future, and really helps you cope with what you have to cope with. Many years ago, when we first started this small group of patients, I met a young man named Bill Halloran. Bill was 33 years old at the time. He was the father of 2 small children, and he had Gaucher disease. And meeting Bill, for me, gave me such a sense of hope. Seeing that this young man was able to overcome whatever his limitations had been placed on him, even though he was extremely ill, he lived life to the fullest. And for me, I translated that into, that's hope. That's hope. That's hope that my girls will have the same kind of capacity to enjoy life that Bill did. And that even though it's not the life I envisioned for them, even though it was going to be difficult for me as a parent to watch them suffer, they were going to find their place, and they were going to live the life to the best of their ability with this disease. And I felt less alone knowing that there was other people out there who knew what I was going through.
I think that I was very lucky to grow up with the Gaucher community because it provided me with a sense of normalcy growing up. I think that a lot of the time, having a rare disease, you can feel alienated from the people around you, even though on the outside, everyone looks at you and you look just like them. But you are experiencing something different, which as a child can be really difficult. And being in the Gaucher community introduced me not only to the facts about my disease and get to see what it would progress like, and seeing people who were grown up who already went through what I went through, but other kids my age. I'm still friends with people that I met at such a young age that are still such an important part of my life.
Growing up with a rare disease, it's so important to have had somebody else there with you throughout the whole experience. And being able to talk to someone else about that, being able to be around other people who are going through the same thing you're going through, and people who have already been through it and did it before you and know what it's like and have that around you all the time is incredible.
I consider myself very lucky to have grown up with quite a few role models within the Gaucher community, like Bill, like Mark, but especially my own mother. I'm very lucky to have someone who's been an advocate for me since day one, because when I was diagnosed, I was only 3 or 4 months old. I couldn't speak up for myself, so I've grown up my whole life having my mother be that person for me, and I definitely look up to her for that.
Growing up with Gaucher disease, I had my parents there the whole ride, making sure that I lived a healthy, normal life. It was a very unique transition as I moved into young adulthood to try and take on some of the responsibilities onto my own shoulders. A couple of things I do in my daily life to help me cope with Gaucher disease include healthy eating and staying active. I try my best to do activities that will strengthen my knees and hips and maintain a diet that involves a lot of vegetables, high calcium things, and just conscious activity and conscious eating.
I think just as important as the physical things you can do to take care of your body for coping with Gaucher disease is your attitude towards it. I think you need to be aware of the fact that you do have a disease and you do have to take extra precautions, but you should also remember that that's not who you are, and you aren't defined by Gaucher. Gaucher is a part of you, but you are still your own person. After having grown up with Gaucher disease and gone through the process of being diagnosed and exploring what it means to be a child with a rare disease, I would say the most important thing that I would take away from it, and something I would tell someone who's newly diagnosed, is to remember to be open about talking about your disease and about asking questions, because you don't have the experience of someone else. You don't know what is normal, and you don't know what way you should be feeling.
I think the advice that I would have to give a newly diagnosed Gaucher patient would be to be yourself and to not feel ashamed of your condition for even 1 second, because there's nothing to be ashamed about. And just because you're different doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think that you should take it as an opportunity to educate the other people around you and let them in and let them know about this unique quality that makes you you.
I would advise the loved one of a Gaucher patient to reach out. From my perspective, when my children were diagnosed many, many years ago, my reaching out to other patients made me able to cope with what they had to face. They were my motivation for reaching out, but I have benefited so much from reaching out. I reached out so that I could help them, but in return, I was helped tenfold.
To me, being brave means writing your own life story. It means setting your own limitations, understanding the fact that because you have a rare disease, there are things that you can't do, and there are things that you don't get to experience, but taking that in a positive way and understanding that while you have these limitations, there are other doors that you can explore, and just because you can't go play dodgeball doesn't mean you can't go do something else instead during that time. Getting to explore the options in your life that you do have, that's what's brave. When one door shuts, open up another one and make those choices for yourself.
Bravery to me is Mark Friedman conducting a press conference from his hospital bed, knowing that he had to do this to be able to reach out to other patients. Bravery to me is meeting parents who've lost 2 children and have no family, no children left, and still attend these meetings and reaching out and helping other patients. Bravery to me is sometimes just those people getting out of bed in the morning and facing these obstacles and still going on.
To me, being brave means accepting your situation, overcoming your experiences, and remembering them. Growing from all of the positive and negative that you experience in your life. Whether it's a doctor's appointment, taking the bench in gym class, not being able to go on that hike, just accepting everything and overcoming it and realizing your limitations, but rising above them, that's bravery to me.
My name is Christine White. I live in Ottawa, Ontario. I'm the mother of 3 young adults, 2 of whom have Gaucher disease. My current role is president of the National Gaucher Foundation of Canada. Our mission is to provide support for patients through communication, through advocacy, through research, and through awareness. We don't ever want people to feel like they're alone.
I think that I was very lucky to grow up with the Gaucher community because it provided me with a sense of normalcy. And being in the Gaucher community introduced me not only to the facts about my disease and get to see what it would progress like, and seeing people who were grown up who already went through what I went through, but other kids my age. I'm still friends with people that I met at such a young age that are still such an important part of my life.
A couple of things I do in my daily life to help me cope with Gaucher disease include healthy eating and staying active.
I think just as important as the physical things you can do to take care of your body for coping with Gaucher disease is your attitude towards it. You need to be aware of the fact that you do have a disease and you do have to take extra precautions, but you should also remember that that's not who you are, and you aren't defined by Gaucher. Gaucher is a part of you, but you are still your own person.
I think the advice that I would have to give a newly diagnosed Gaucher patient would be to be yourself and to not feel ashamed of your condition for even 1 second, because there's nothing to be ashamed about.
Remember to be open about talking about your disease and about asking questions, because you don't have the experience of someone else. You don't know what is normal, and you don't know what way you should be feeling.
And I think that you should take it as an opportunity to educate the other people around you and let them in and let them know about this unique quality that makes you you.
I would advise the loved one of a Gaucher patient to reach out. From my perspective, when my children were diagnosed many, many years ago, my reaching out to other patients made me able to cope with what they had to face. They were my motivation for reaching out, but I have benefited so much from reaching out. I reached out so that I could help them, but in return, I was helped tenfold.